Good afternoon, Richland College. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is that time. You are listening to KDUX Web Radio, broadcast live from Richland College in Dallas, Texas. We are the voice of Richland College. Views expressed on this show are our own unless otherwise stated and do not reflect the opinion of KDUX Web Radio, Richland College, or the D.C. C, John?
No.
C. D. Okay, guys, another random episode here. It's 3:30, the Friday before spring break. And we're here. And we're happy to be here. Again, a Tuesday of cancellations here, so that the KDUX staff can broadcast something else, which is very important. But we are able to squeeze in right before spring break. I'm very happy about. John, I'm trying to get you on camera.
Oh, yeah. There I am.
And who do we have here? Who do we have in the studio? It's the officers. Better known officer.
Let's just say our real names today. You go first.
Yeah, maybe use your real name. So yeah, we'll do introductions. We'll start with you, Gabby.
Hello, my name is Gabby, and I'm the treasurer of the Philosophy Club. So, yeah.
Quack, quack. I don't love my quacker.
Oh no. Thank gosh. Hi everyone, I am Hayakazi. I'm the communications officer, and I usually don't say my real identity, but here you go. It's a one-type opportunity.
We're thrilled. Thank you for that. You're being so disclosive here. Who do I got to my right?
Can you see me? I can't tell.
You can't see me.
There's a mic.
I'm John Stallings. I'm the vice president. I'm filling in for our Lord and Savior, Uche.
Uche has been exiled to Houston.
For a
huge
forbidden.
no,
Houston?
for a meeting with this cult called Phi Theta Kappa.
Oh, is that what the deal is?
It's a cult, yeah. He got
Ah.
inducted just yesterday.
Yeah, the deal is that it's a cult.
I was almost
some deal.
inducted into that cult, and I was like, hell no.
Phi Theta Culta. Am I right, folks?
No.
Nope.
Well, that'll take us to our topic real quick. Of course, I'm Professor Manzi, the faculty advisor at the Philosophy Club. We're fresh off an officers' meeting, which I had to attend because, again, Uche is off in Houston doing whatever, probably fighting more speeding tickets. And I got to say, we got some big things coming up. A lot of things to plug, a lot of shout-outs to give. We'll save those to the end, though. Let's get right to the meat of it here. This past Philosophy Club focused on humor or laughter or comedy, however you'd like to put it. And, of course, how you put it does, in fact, have implications to what we discuss. But I think it was a pretty lively discussion. We talked about, again, this idea of the function of a sense of humor. Because we're going to do the re-quack. Shall we do the re-quack?
Yeah.
Let me get a quack.
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 Oh my God.
That was
bad.
that was quite bad. Here, I'll show you how it's done. You ready?
Don't do it. Don't do it, please.
Quack.
Oh.
I think I could do a duck call.
Gosh, you sound like when the character was trying to sing in that movie on Wednesday.
That sounds
yesterday.
like Daffy Duck when he's freaked out.
Oh, yeah, when he was trying to
A
sing.
stressed duck. I'm freaking out.
That was pretty good, though. Can
Oh,
we
thanks.
isolate that?
No.
Every time Uche begins to talk going forward, I'm going to hit that button, and that's all we're going to hear. It's going to be that. People are going to think he quacks. Yeah, guys. So we talked about the function of humor. We talked about, again, humor related to taste or what's your comedic sensibilities or stylings. We talked about even laughter and what that is and why that is. A lot of ground we covered in a short amount of time, and a lot to continue to cover here.
We also went over like bad humor and when something's too soon, and we went over offensive humor and that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, no, and thank you. Again, it's weird because I really settled into the whole routine of, again, coming right from the meeting to the radio show and everything's so fresh. It's been a while since I've had to jog my memory. And, in the early days of this radio show, we never recorded on the same day of the meeting. So it was always like an effort to try to remember everything we talked about. And I'm experiencing that again. But yeah, you're right. And that was the too soon conversation, I think, was pretty riveting.
Mm-hmm.
This idea of not just what a joke is, but if we consider why we have comedy, why we laugh, why we have a joke, then it would seem to suggest that there are certain times and situations when you unleash that function or capability, and certain times when maybe you don't. And people are arguing one way or the other. I believe Brian, president of the debate club, was arguing that
It's never too soon.
yeah, exactly. There's no such thing as too soon. And others, of course, were
Disagreeing.
disagreeing. They were, as you might imagine, logically pulling back from that scenario. So what I thought I'd do is this. Because it's comedy, we're going to start, everybody is going to take 3 minutes to tell some jokes. So we'll start with Gabby. Gabby?
What? I was not prepared for this.
joking. That was a joke.
Wait, but I would like to say something. I don't even know if I said this during the club, but
yeah, please.
I had a anthropologist professor, and he told us that the only way that you can really know that you know a language and that you understand the culture is when you understand their jokes.
Ooh,
So
interesting.
that's pretty interesting, and it seems that it is universal to tell jokes and appreciate humor.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, two things there. I think it's universal that every culture has a humor, so to speak. I don't mean humor bone. It's interesting that every culture. I pause so we can edit that out. It's like takes. Every culture does seem to have some idea of what's funny, but exactly what that is does seem to be specific to certain cultures. And that's why I think some jokes, maybe they don't necessarily translate, because a lot of jokes are culture specific. So you're taking something that's normal, and then you're putting it in a situation comedy, a comedic way, or you're phrasing it in a certain way that because people know how it should sound, it's funny that it doesn't sound that way. And I think, as Gabby's saying here, you have to have some kind of intimate familiarity with a culture to get the humor.
I think when it comes to different languages and different cultures especially, there's certain normal ways that people behave socially. Like if I were to just all of a sudden know Portuguese, for example, and then go to Brazil and then just speak like I would in English but in Portuguese, then there would be social things missing, and I would be thought it was just really weird.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
in Japan, if you speak Japanese and you're using the informal speech in Japan, that would be considered extremely rude, especially to a person you just met. But even here, you could just go on to a person like, "Hey, how are you doing?" And in Japan, if you ask that to someone like, "Daijoubu desu ka?" then they're just going, "Oh my God, that's so rude."
Wait, what did you say?
I said, "Are you okay?"
Oh, is that Japanese?
Yeah,
You just speak Japanese?
I took 2 semesters of Japanese.
You
I
did?
just-
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I can speak
What?
and write a bit of Japanese.
That's cool.
Can you say a joke in Japanese?
Not really.
Is that because you don't know the culture?
Yeah, probably. I just learned Japanese for no reason.
So you can watch anime without subtitles.
Oh,
Yeah, I hope that worked out. But yeah, it kind of does work out, but not really. Let me just search up Japanese jokes.
But that's okay. I mean, so then what do we make of that, John? Because I think there's, and we talked about this as well to some extent, there's as much delivery in a joke as there is content in a joke. And it seems like for a joke to land, so to speak, for somebody to be able to get a joke and tell a joke well, there does have to be a close understanding of not just what people find funny, but what the person to whom you're speaking will find funny. And I think a major part of the conversation on Tuesday turned around, whether or not, who's the authority on what's funny. And so, again, Christopher, who's the faculty advisor of Pride here on campus, was trying to explain when he was engaging with Brian there that, it's if you know somebody's not going to find something funny, you have to take that into consideration. If you suspect they'll be insulted by it, or if you suspect that it'll, again, offend them, then it's not funny.
I think we can attach this to a metaphor of setting up a bear trap and then sending someone in to step on the bear trap.
You really are replacing Uche with these metaphors. But no, please.
But I mean, so you set up the bear trap just like you'd set up the joke. So you make someone think that it's their idea, that they're walking towards this, and then they get it. And then once they get it, that means you've succeeded in making them think what you've wanted them to think. And then at the same time making them think that it's their own idea.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I think that's true. So this idea of using jokes or comedy as a way of conveying information, as a way of getting people to see things your way, as like a rhetorical technique, something like that.
In
what
a
if
way.
it fails? Like,
If it fails, then you haven't successfully gotten them to the bear
like every
trap.
joke Manzi gives. Like
That's-
Yeah.
everything.
On the contrary, I think they are all wildly successful.
Not really.
Manzi's bear trap is like, you see the bear trap, and then in seeing the bear trap, you recognize that you're in some kind of larger bear trap.
No, I feel like most jokes you're supposed to
The nicest
walk
thing
into
anyone's ever
it.
said to me.
I feel like most jokes you're supposed to walk into it without knowing that you're walking into it. But like you don't see the bear trap and you step into like, oh no, I got caught in a bear trap. But Professor Manzi has like neon lights just pointing to it.
Here's a bear trap.
Here's the bear trap. Step in it, please. But they don't have a bigger bear trap. It's just that. It's just flashy bear traps.
Flashy bear traps.
Flash traps.
That sounds wrong.
Yeah, something sounds off about that. I will say this though: the more you hang out with me, the more attuned you become to my sense of humor, and I think that's how it is with people. Is that you begin to understand when you understand somebody's sense of humor. I think you understand something really deep about them,
True.
something really personal.
It's like when a person opens up to you and you realize that they have a really dark sense of humor.
Yeah. Or they have a real sweet sense of humor.
Or a real dry sense of humor.
Yes.
Like that, I think that's especially true. Like you can hang out with someone for a long time until you realize that all these things that they're saying are actually jokes.
And then you have never realized it. You just thought that they were being sarcastic. Like, oh.
Yeah, and it's
a
like
joke.
oh, it's not that their jokes are bad. Now that I realize your attempts at humor, I can appreciate them. It's something like that, I think.
Yeah.
So can you appreciate a joke that you do? I mean, it means that if you don't realize it's a joke, you cannot appreciate it.
Yes, and I think that goes back to that conversation back and forth where it's like there's a person who will never accept that certain things are funny, who will never. Excuse me. Oh my God! I just burped into the microphone. That's funny. It smells like me. Sorry for whoever's coming on next. Sorry to Papa Pronk, who's next. And anyways, so it's something like, well, if you have an understanding of what you find to be funny and certain things that you think are sacred and therefore not funny, and maybe that might be tied back to personal experiences or things along these lines.
Like making mom jokes, and that's not okay.
It's not?
No, it's not. You never make jokes about your mom. That's definitely not okay.
Well, I'll give you here's an example from my past. I remember I had my friends and I used to like to bust each other's chops all the time. We still do in high school. And there was a kid who was like, he was friends with us, but he never really hung out with us regularly. So we didn't always know what was going on in his life. And I found out that his mom passed away untimely in a tragic manner. And, when you're in 10th or 11th grade and that happens, it's really, it's debilitating. It's devastating. But we used to make a lot of jokes at the expense of our respective mothers. That was just kind of how it was. And I remember one time my friend went up to this other kid, and he made a usual joke, like, about his mom, having relations or what have you, and in a facetious manner. And my friend was like, not today. My mom died. And then my friend, without blinking, said, well, then I had those same relations to her grave. And the issue being that, again, and I'm using this as an example, I'm not trying to offend anybody here, but you can imagine how the other kid reacted. He tried to kill my friends.
Definitely.
Because it's not funny considering the circumstances. Whereas my friend, again, because he wasn't completely aware of the circumstances, doubled down on the joke because he thought that they were joking back and forth. Because sometimes it might be like, hey, don't do that, man. This just happened. And in a very dry, sarcastic way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it led to this huge misunderstanding. And so that reminded me of the conversation. I should say the conversation reminded me of that because it's possible to understand why something could be funny and even to find something funny normally. But because something changes, suddenly it's not funny. Or it's not funny yet. Or again, it's too soon. That sort of idea. Whereas, again, I feel like, some of the members in the club were arguing that a joke is always permissible. It's always allowed because it's universal and because comedy is a way of enduring tragedy.
Yeah, Yeah, but
And so, in other words, it's if you don't, the joke can be funny objectively, and if you don't find it funny, it's your fault.
not really.
Yeah, and that's
if
the
a joke
question.
if a joke is a form of communication, then you want the other person to understand what you're communicating, right? So if you're communicating that, you're communicating in through a joke that you want things to lighten up a bit. Right? You don't want things to be as tragic as they are now. And if
Yeah.
the person in front of you does not get the joke because of the situation, then you were failing to communicate what you were trying to communicate.
Oh, that's true. So you're trying to elicit a certain response, in other
Yeah,
words.
isn't that what jokes are, to elicit a response?
That's a question. Is that what jokes are?
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes.
The fact that it has a punchline then it means it's eliciting a response.
Well, not all jokes have punchlines.
Yeah, that's true too. But I mean, when you say a joke to yourself, is it really a joke?
That's a good
Well,
question.
It is a good question.
I think this goes back to, if you are funny, then you get that kind of respect from someone else, and that's a form of self-actualization
Yeah.
from another perspective.
I like
and
that.
and the way that you are perceived as funny, you make someone laugh, then the whole point is to make someone else laugh,
Yeah.
and then you laugh with them. To say a joke to yourself and to crack yourself up is just sad.
Yeah. But then
Why are you looking at me?
Isn't this just the point?
And I agree.
that you're saying a joke to receive a response. It's kind of like acknowledging yourself, but to acknowledge yourself, there has to be another self for you to differentiate between. So you can't say a joke is
Alien.
you can't say a joke is a joke if there isn't anybody else to acknowledge that that was funny. So if something is not funny, it is not a joke.
But what if you find it funny? And
But
what
then
if,
but isn't the fact that having jokes it is to elicit a response from somebody else who is not you.
But can I make? So wait, if you're watching television by yourself, and you find something funny, don't you laugh out loud?
No, but then that's a joke that the television is telling you.
Then you have the illusion of someone else being there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
That's true.
it is because like if somebody like if I'm watching Friends and Rasta says something that's funny and I'm like, that's funny.
Well, that's
wrong.
never happened, but okay.
That's-
Yeah.
That's the same way that it has to do with storytelling. How when you tell a story, at first you want to make someone really feel like they know the character or the narrator, because then once you're telling the story, then this person identifies and aligns with this character or narrator, and then so they have the illusion of being there with them. You've trained the brain to respond as if this the reader is there in the story.
Yeah, and I think that's especially true of comedies that you watch. I mean, you start to feel like you're hanging out with the people, right? Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'm going to hang out with my friends down at Patty's Pub, stuff like that.
Well, Friends.
Well, here's the thing: is that you begin to identify with their comedic sensibilities, or maybe you already did identify with them, and that's what brings you to that show in the first place, and that's what brings you to hang out with certain people in the first place. But I want to get back to this idea of making a joke by yourself, to yourself, and then laughing at that. That seems incredibly human.
Well,
Like
no.
if you're dealing with a tragedy, sometimes you're trying to just make yourself laugh, or sometimes if you have a sense of humor, you can't easily divorce yourself from it.
It's not a joke because like if I'm looking at something and I see someone doing something strange and they're doing it without realizing that they are doing it, and I find that, hey, that's funny, and I'll laugh and I smile. That's not a joke. It's a
Oh, okay,
hilarious
good point.
occurrence, right? That I acknowledge, like, oh, that's funny. Right? I'm not saying
It's
a
not
joke.
a joke, but it's funny.
It's
Yeah.
funny, but to say a joke would be to all right, okay. What why do they say to actors go break a leg? Because they're a cast. Well, that's if I tell that to myself in my only my own company, then that is sad.
Why is that sad?
Because
Explain
you
that to
are
me.
because
Because you are?
no,
Excuse you.
no, sorry. I mean, I feel like what I'm trying to say is that the idea of a joke is to elicit a response, right?
It's a social tool.
It's a social tool. But if you were saying it to yourself, It's
You're a
like you're
social
speaking
tool.
to. It's like you're speaking to yourself.
That was funny.
It's not sad. It has no. It just serves no purpose. It's like speaking to yourself. It serves no purpose to communicate, but rather you're just projecting your thoughts at yourself.
You don't talk to yourself, Haya?
I do,
Oh.
but it doesn't serve a purpose because I
Maybe it
understand
does
myself.
serve the purpose of relief. Maybe if you're going through something and you try to be funny inside your head.
But then you're just
about
trying
it.
to be funny. You're not eliciting a response.
There are a lot of times when I'm just thinking of something funny in public and then I laugh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too.
And then why is that weird? Why do people think that's weird
Well,
when
why-
you just
yeah.
laugh out of nowhere? Obviously, you're thinking of something
It's-
funny.
it
She's
is-
calling it sad.
It isn't
Yeah.
She's
weird.
pitying you. if
It
you do
isn't
that.
weird. It's more like it's just that I feel like people assume that it seems like you're listening to something that is not yourself, and then you're laughing either at yourself or something an imaginary person said. That's why people say it's sad. When I say a joke is sad, I don't mean it is as sad as in bad. I mean that it serves no purpose, as in terms of communication.
But maybe the purpose isn't to communicate. Maybe the purpose is to elicit a feeling in yourself.
But
Like
sure,
you're feeling down, so you think of something funny
I
on
can
purpose.
agree with that. If the
Okay.
joke's purpose is to lighten the mood, right? Then you can say that, okay, lightens my mood. If I say a joke to myself, then what do you call? What was that? I feel like, what do you call an actor
is
that
great.
breaks through the floorboards of a? No, I forgot.
Maybe you just aren't good at telling jokes.
I'm
Maybe
not
that's
good.
why you don't like jokes.
I'm not good. I'm not good. at jokes. I'm sorry.
That's why I don't like video games.
Excuse me. I love video games.
Okay, so but okay, a couple things. I think you're making a good distinction here between jokes and humor, because I was kind of equivocating. If Keelan were here, it'd be like,
Yeah, but Jeff, are we equivocating between
so I think we are equivocating. He's gonna listen back to this. He's on his way here. He's gonna join us later. But I love you, Keelan. I think you're right there. That humor isn't. A joke is one example of what a humor is, what a sense of humor is. And again, it's called a sense, like taste is a sense. Some people like salty foods, other people don't. Depends on your taste, depends on your sensibilities.
There's
Yeah.
a taste I want to talk about with humor, which has to do with when something is just so horrible, like dark humor kind of.
Yeah.
It has a shock value,
Yeah.
and that's what's
Yeah.
funny about it.
Yeah,
Well,
like when
yeah,
you make
talk about that.
Holocaust jokes that are so dark, you go like, oh my god, that's bad, but there's a part of you that's laughing.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I'll go, and then you're guilty because you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just laughed at that. I'm a terrible person.
Yeah. Have you ever laughed at a funeral?
No. Don't bring that up
You
again.
haven't lived.
Don't
Get it?
don't,
Live.
Don't
It's a
ever.
joke.
No, I'm just saying.
It's a grave joke.
Don't ever bring that up again. If Uche was here, like, don't talk to me.
If Uche was here, it'd be like, Manzi, I'm trying to talk to you.
Oh wait,
Yeah,
I
it
wanted to
does
ask a question though. I mean, for me, I've always I don't really watch plays, but I do enjoy the fact that exploring genres of theater plays and dramas. But I don't really understand the existence of comedic tragedy. Or
The
tragic-
existence?
Yeah, I don't understand why they occur and what reason. How did they come about? What
It's-
reason do they serve?
It's to cope with tragedy.
Yeah, I think that's what we concluded the function was, right?
But isn't the fact that a tragedy it's supposed to be sad and depressing, but when you bring comedy, doesn't it like negate the idea of tragedy?
Well, think about a tragedy. What a tragedy happens, and then after it's happened, there's nothing you can do about it, and you can continue to be sad about it if you want to be sad about it, or you can change the mood and be happy about it.
Yeah,
or
but,
they call it funny. Then
yeah,
because
but
there's
isn't
nothing you can
the
do about
occurrence of tragedy
You heard it
doesn't
here
have
first,
to be
folks.
yeah the occurrence
Vice
of tragedy.
President says, think about a tragedy. Do it now.
No, please. The idea of a tragedy isn't that there's someone who died but the idea of something sad that occurs. A tragedy happened. My favorite dress just
Oh, I see what
burned.
you mean.
Yeah, so I mean,
Sorry about that. It was hideous. I had to burn it.
oh,
The
okay.
dress.
Okay, the dress, of course. But that's just
See, that's an example of what happens
it
when
was
okay, so you think let me just interrupt you here. You think a joke bombs. You think a joke is bad because nobody laughs. But it's because it took a second to realize it, to get it. And that actually makes it a really good joke.
But then it didn't make me laugh.
But sometimes the audience.
'cause it's at your expense.
Not that you're not smart enough, Haya. This is just segueing into the next point. Sometimes the audience isn't smart enough for the joke.
True.
Oh, and that could be because you don't
Or-
expect the joke.
Or rather not smart enough. It's more that you're not in the same wavelength. Like if I have my brother and I, we usually make the same jokes. And when my brother makes a joke, nobody else in the family laughs, but I laugh
Please
because it
bring
makes
him
sense.
into the studio.
No, you won't understand him. Anyways, moving on. But I laugh because I understand what his style of jokes are, and he understands my style of jokes.
Exactly.
Right. But see, I don't understand Professor Manzi's style of jokes because my dad is cool and he doesn't make weird dad jokes. But that's just the point. It's not about being smart. It's being on the same wavelength.
You heard it here first, folks. 2 Tuesdays from now, hi as dad, Professor Manzi. It's a cool off. Cool off.
What exactly is a dad joke?
It's puns.
Yeah, hiya. It's
just
puns.
It's lame.
Puns?
The idea of dad jokes, I feel, is that your dad is lame and he makes lame jokes. Hence, a dad joke.
You gonna take that, John? Just calling your dad.
I'm sorry, no, I don't mean your dad. I mean,
First of all, you can't spell punchline without pun.
I love how they're silent. It makes me so happy.
Well, here's the thing. Haya didn't laugh at that joke I made about her because she wasn't expecting me to make a joke. She's expecting me
I'm
to have a
always-
conversation about philosophy.
No,
with her.
I'm always expecting you to make a joke. Like
Exactly.
every 5 seconds, I imagine you making a joke, and at one point you'll say one joke that it's so bad the whole world will fall silent, just quiet.
Wow.
It's just
You wouldn't know it by listening to Haya, but John will attest to this. When I make jokes in our honors intro class, I kill. I slay. The class is rolling over in laughter.
Tell them the truth, John. Nobody will
Sorry,
judge you.
sorry, I got distracted. What are you talking about? I'm so sorry.
Perfect.
Well
If it was
played,
an
well played,
opportunity
well
to
played.
bag on Manzi, I'm so sorry I missed it.
Just ask again, please.
What are we gonna call it?
No, shush. Okay, Professor Manzi asked that when he says jokes in his class, the whole class rolls in laughter, and he didn't let me answer.
John, keep in
So
mind,
you answer.
I'm grading your midterms.
No,
on
he
the
does
spring
not.
break.
He cannot do this.
Grading
It's
the
on. No,
midterms.
it's on the it's on YouTube. If
Manzi,
you
I'm
do
in it
this,
for the philosophy, not for the grades.
haha, get wrecked.
That was a threat. We have that on record. What did you call me in the philosophy club? Professor Memesy? Because you said my jokes are like memes. What were you saying?
Oh, I was
That was-
saying your jokes are kind of like memes.
Yeah.
In
They're
the
just
way
dead.
that they're like, so something can be repeated over and over again to where it's like painful. And that's the same kind of way that your puns work. Where
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. But it's like then it becomes an ironic funny. The
That's
way
what
that it
is.
works is
They're
that
intentionally bad. That's what
Yeah.
makes them good.
But that's just the point, right? What I'm trying to say is that it doesn't mean if for us to enjoy your joke, we have to be on the same level as you are. And sorry, we won't ever fall to that level.
You mean rise, and I am sorry. Okay, you never guess which one of the two ladies in this room is named Gabby. Gabby, why don't you talk?
Me?
Say something.
Um.
Say something about humor.
I have to go.
Okay. Oh, you're gonna.
Right, I'll say bye. I have to go now.
Okay.
Have a
I've
good
gotta put-
spring
Bye,
break.
yeah.
Yeah, have a good spring break. I have to pick up a book from the library.
Okay.
Something to read.
Have a good day.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
So I think someone said at the
See you later.
meeting that there's bad jokes and good jokes,
Okay, yeah, good.
and someone said that the good jokes are the ones that are more famous because
I think a bad
they
joke just
achieve-
left. Am I right, folks? I'm sorry, keep going.
So someone said that
Still
the
here.
She's
good
still-
the good jokes they're good because more people laugh at them, and so they achieve the purpose. But what about the jokes that are more sophisticated or
Yes.
more like hard to understand because
Inside jokes.
yeah, or like sometimes in a book when you're reading you gotta understand the plot and everything to understand the joke. So wouldn't that be a better joke, even
Yeah.
though it doesn't reach as many people?
That's a great question. Yeah, I think there's something to that, and this is kind of what I feel Brian was ultimately arguing for. Is this, some jokes, and I think John, I think you're kind of on board with this as well. The jokes that appeal to your intellect, you can argue are better jokes because you have to be able to get it.
Well, to use the term better is just going back to the problem of quality, which is an aesthetic problem. Because
no, that's true.
we can't go off of what is best. Because we can't decide on what determines something as better than something else.
But can we? Can we say, objectively speaking, here's a good joke? Because comedians are artists. They have techniques. There's ways you structure, just like you can say there are good
Yeah.
writers and bad writers, even though writing is kind of subjective.
But then
Yeah.
the thing that does is that it breaks it down into some kind of like script to follow instead of something just
Yeah.
being
A
good.
formula,
It's
yeah.
a formula.
Yeah.
Can you determine something as good if it's just a formula that you follow?
Maybe if you can be innovative within the formula.
Yeah.
But look,
Okay.
no, John, I think you both are making a great point here, and it's this idea of, can you, qualitatively speaking, and here's where it ultimately comes to, can you qualitatively say to somebody, if you're not laughing, it's on you, because this is a good joke, or this is funny.
I think this can break down even farther into somewhat of a problem of
I'm broken.
emergence.
Let's break it, baby.
where you have something that's complex and amazing and you break it down into like
That's a Manzi joke.
my hands. You can take my hand and just look at it, and then you can break it down into the different particles that make it up, and you break it down even farther into the elementary particles.
And if you make a
then-
fist, it's a punchline. Hey!
Hey.
Wow, wow.
Stop. Okay, so then the emergent quality is that the same thing with water. If the wetness of water is an emergent quality, I think the funniness of a joke is the emergent quality of the words that come together. Just like we don't know why a bunch of stupid things come together to make one smart thing, like a bunch of cells come together to make an organism. We have that problem of pushing towards something more complex than its parts, something that's greater than the sum of its components, like a school of fish and fish. I think that funniness is something that comes out of the property of emergence.
I think you're describing wit. Because again, that, humor, it seems, at least wit or comedy in the way you're describing the emergent, it comes from unifying. So again, a bunch of cells come together and they make something that is, better than the sum of their parts, so to speak. That concerted effort, that bringing things together that you wouldn't imagine could come together. I think that's kind of what a pun is. It's making a connection where there is a connection, but not everybody sees it. Maybe because it's staring them right in the face, or maybe not. I think the conditions for the possibility of humor emerging requires a number of things here. This is what we're getting at. It requires familiarity with context. It requires an understanding of your audience's demographic, sensibility. It requires, again, being able to articulate the joke in a way that's fluid and seemingly spontaneous. Yeah, grab a seat, Caleb. Yeah. And all of these things.
But I think that if you take all of those variables, you take all the variables that come together to make a good joke. You take the audience, you take how you laid it out, you take the rhythm of how you're saying what you're saying. You can copy that exact same thing and use different examples, but it's still not original. It's the same joke then.
No, but you can play around with those elements. So
Well, still, if you play
be
around
creative.
if you play around the elements, you're still going off of just the variables and how the variables are built. You're not making something that's original and funny. So instead of going off of the funniness and building from the funniness, you're building something to try to get to funniness, I guess.
Yeah, you're trying to hone. I mean, this is why they call it a craft. You're trying to master the techniques and hone what it is that will elicit that laughter response to anybody consistently. Yeah, I think that's true. The other thing, too, to consider is, again, knowing the joketeller. And it seems like, as we were talking about before, if you understand somebody's sense of humor, you understand something kind of intimate about them. And yet, tying back to your question there about dark humor, it seems like the nature of dark humor is such that you do what is inappropriate, or you say what is inappropriate in a setting where it's supposed to be very, no pun intended, always pun intended, but I already made this joke, grave and serious and dire and tragic. When you react in a way that is most unexpected to tragedy, that's called dark humor. And so in order to understand a dark humor joke, one has to realize, again, the social norms of that particular group or even family or society at large. And it's being able to understand, well, the people that are going to hear this, they're going to know that coming from, say, me, I will have this kind of sense of humor and I will make a joke. I'm really trying to push kind of what I guess Brian's point of view was. And the people are going to come to expect that from me to some degree. And so it won't be as inappropriate because they understand that I'm appropriately inappropriate. and they'd understand that the joke was not to offend them, but it's to help alleviate them. And in a certain way, people use humor as a shield during tragic times. It's easier to laugh before you cry, right? Or maybe not. Anyway, yeah. No, Caitlin, to catch up with you, to catch you up, brother. We're just talking about kind of the distinctions here between humor and what a joke is, and if a joke is something that can be universally shared and crafted, or if it's dependent on a number of factors, and what makes a joke, kind of things like that. Was there any aspect of the conversation you wanted to sort of focus on?
You mean the conversation that happened at the
club? Yeah.
At the club?
Yeah.
Again, once again, I showed up late to this. I showed up late to the club meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just, I'm kind of falling down on the job here.
Yeah.
So I was only there for the last half or so.
You're pulling a real Manzi.
Oh, is that what they call it now?
Late to everything.
Is that what they call it now?
They will.
I'm not hearing myself in the headphones here. Is that?
Oh, you might have to turn it up on your.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Just
Right
making
there.
sure it's being picked up on the mic at all.
Okay.
Yeah, you're
There we
being
go.
picked up.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I thought or at least I was more interested in kind of how the conversation seemed to be constantly shifting back and forth between what constitutes a joke or humor, or rather, I guess, what makes something funny versus what determines the conditions under which a given joke or funny thing is appropriate or not.
Yeah.
It seems like those two, they, at least in my mind, seem to be at least analytically distinct, but obviously in practice,
Very related.
And intimately related. Yeah. The telling of the joke, or what makes the joke funny versus what makes it appropriate. Honestly, whenever you tell a joke, those two things are kind of always, correlated with each other, or at least co-present with each other, I suppose.
I think so.
But I do think there is. I think the things that make a joke funny may be different than the things that make it appropriate or inappropriate.
Yeah, and see, I don't know about that.
You're not sure?
I think I think it depends on the genre of humor. So I think
So going back to dark humor, you think this is a special example?
Yeah, versus something like I don't know. Okay, here's an example. You have different kinds of comedians. You have some comedians whose entire act, and again, I'm bringing up comedians because they're professional joke makers. You have some comedians who their entire joke is based around their own personality and their own personal details of their life story and the contemporary climate of the time. And so it's very context derivative. And for that reason, they push the boundaries of what's normally appropriate to create something like shock value, as you were describing it, John.
That's kind of how George Carlin works, I guess.
Yeah, but then you consider somebody like Jerry Seinfeld, who's had the same comedic act for 20 years. He's been telling the same jokes for 2 decades, and the reason he's able to get away with that is because the jokes have nothing to do with contemporary issues or anything about himself in particular. It's just they're straight up pure jokes that could apply to anybody at any time under any circumstances permanently. And he thinks that's what makes a perfect joke.
You mean you're talking about like the jokes that are on Seinfeld, like?
Yeah, or his actual
I've never
stand-up
seen his
act.
stand-up. Are they kind of like the jokes on Seinfeld?
Yeah, very much. The
like-
show is based off his
Yeah.
act,
Okay. So like, there's a whole episode where they just get lost in a parking garage.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they just are trying to find their car the whole time, and it's hilarious, and it doesn't have to do with anything that has to do with like any shock value or anything like that. It's just
Exactly.
It's just making fun of a situation that happens day to day.
Yes, and there's no puns, there's no double entendres.
Mm-hmm.
There's also no, he's not getting loud, and there's no pies in the face like Three Stooges style. It's just he's sitting there and he's constructed these jokes. But you can say, okay, on the one hand, if the point is to make people laugh, then perhaps that is the perfect joke. But if the point is to make people laugh for a certain reason, or in a certain way, like
If
like
you're trying to get a
self-deprecation.
point across as well.
Yeah, a la Carlin, exactly.
Yeah.
So there are some times where it's inappropriate to laugh at a joke because that wasn't the intent of the joke. But another put it is this: sometimes a joke isn't meant to make you laugh. Sometimes you make a joke and it's meant to, irritate somebody. You make a joke at somebody's expense. We call that bullying. Or you make a joke as a way to sort of lighten the mood if you're having an argument or something like that. To try to inject a dose of comedic relief. Not necessarily trying to make the person laugh at the joke, but for other purposes. So I think this all ties back to the question of what is the purpose of a sense of humor. Jokes being, just one manifestation of a sense of humor. It seems like a sense of humor is, and I believe this was suggested maybe by Uche, and I want to get back to the points you're making about laughter, Joe, before we started recording. It's for the sake of not just coping merely, with the world, but of understanding the world and being able to see and interpret experiences differently than what's most obvious. And that's why I think having a refined sense of humor is a sign of intelligence. Because you're able to understand how what's happening before you could be interpreted differently. You can find the humor in it. You can find the connection there. Again, puns, they're about connections. They're about unanticipated vehicles of unity.
And that definitely ties into the point that I was talking about before.
Yeah.
So the question that we had for the philosophy club meeting was, why do we laugh?
Yes.
And I didn't think it was a very good question, just because we have a definite scientific answer, which is that we make connections in our brain and we get rewarded for doing that. There is something new that happens in our brain, and then because of that, we've learned something. We've put two and two together, and that helps us later on in life. And because of that, that makes us laugh as a type of reward for figuring things out.
Oh, okay. Okay. So yeah, the laughter is like it's almost like a point of pride then. Like, hey, I did it. Yeah.
I guess as a point of pride, I would
That
say
was me acting, by the way.
Okay. I'd say it's more like an evolutionary response, something that helps you later in surviving
see.
and carrying on the gene, because you can survive better because you've made a connection.
What about carrying on the bill
Like
instead of Jean?
Oh,
My grandma's name is Jean.
So what made that not funny?
Let's keep it nothing. You guys made it nothing.
How would it have been funny in any way ever?
Okay, let's keep it congenial.
Conbilial.
Convivial. Convivial?
Umbilical.
Yeah, let's go deep, and let's go into some deep pun territory.
Well, no, I'm wondering though. I think there might be onto something with this. Both of you now have referenced, connections, but it's obviously. I think this ties back into what Jeff was getting at the club meeting. Connections between what? It seems to be connections between concepts in some way, or things which necessarily involve some type of rationality, or at least the ability to form abstract concepts. With no, if you are incapable of forming concepts, it would seem that fact itself would preclude your ability to have a sense of humor.
Well, or maybe just, I think that's right, except I'd qualify a little bit, a refined sense of humor. Because, you could still, if somebody gets hit in the face with a pie, like, you can laugh at that, and you not necessarily make connections,
Well,
Yeah.
Or maybe, I don't know.
Well, so I think that's actually a really good point. That kind of pushes us in this direction.
You don't have to say actually. I mean, I make good points.
I'm wondering. Moving on.
Actually,
I'm
what you
wondering-
said wasn't completely worthless.
Imagine that.
I can't.
So you had no sense of humor because you can't imagine it. All right.
Make your point
I'm
before I'm
wondering-
going to keep it there. Make your-
I'm wondering if maybe again I'm kind of captured by, or at least interested in this incongruity theory of humor. I'm wondering if maybe that
right.
concept of incongruity can kind of account for, or in some way subsume, all these other things we've been talking about so far, including one end of the spectrum like pie in the face slapstick humor, even to the extremes of dark humor or black comedy, things like that. I'm wondering if that concept of incongruity can actually apply to, or at least kind of give a general account of, not the appropriateness of those, but just what makes them funny, or what accounts for the humor.
No, I'm all ears.
Why is a pie
Yeah.
in the face funny? I want to know that.
Well, it
I
seemed
think,
like.
like,
sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
maybe when you're not expecting something and that happens, that could be funny. So
Yeah.
you're not expecting that to happen. So if it does happen, you just laugh.
Yeah,
Or-
I think. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Or you've seen it happen a couple of times, and then you expect it to happen one more time, and then it doesn't, and something else happens. That can be funny too.
And I think this
Yeah.
also ties in with what Jeff was talking about in the philosophy club meeting, about how jokes can, why is it the case that jokes can get played out, or overplayed to where, okay, the first time is funny, second time less so, 10th time, okay, just stop, it's not funny anymore. right? But it's the
You sound
same.
like my
It's the
student.
exact same thing each time.
Yeah.
Yet the degree of humor, can change. It would seem that it is context dependent, like Jeff was talking about. Yet it's the incongruity aspect that seems to account for that.
Yeah.
The first time it happens, like you said, you're not expecting it. Getting hit in the face with a pie is, in general, not something that normally happens.
Yes.
It's not something you
Es-
expect.
especially if you're a child and you have, you look at
Yeah.
your parent, your dad is somebody who's authority and dignified, and then he gets hit in the face with a pie. It's like, oh my God, this authoritative figure just got hit in the face with a pie. You know what I
It
mean?
seems like that
So
heightens the
incongruous.
incongruity.
Exactly, yeah.
But if you see the same thing happen 100 times in a row within the span of 5 minutes, now you're expecting it. Like he was saying, it's no longer that incongruous and therefore not that funny anymore.
I
Yeah.
think then it comes into meme territory. Once you start repeating something over and over again, a meme, before it meant what it means now, it meant something that is repeated in a culture with slight variation. So
I didn't know that.
yeah, so like we could take one meme that I know pretty well, which is the "What in Tarnation" meme. You know, where there's that little dog with the hat on, and he says "What in Tarnation" is the little cowboy hat. But then the point is that it changes, and then like it'll have like, I don't know, a computer with a little hat on, and it'll be like, "What in computer calculation?" Or then like it'll change and be like, "What in standard deviation?" And it'll be like a parabola with a cowboy hat on, and it just keeps going over and over and over again. And the funny part is that it repeats that same kind of topic.
But slightly changed each time in a way that you might not expect. Whereas
Yeah.
the exact same image, the original meme, copy pasted a million times as it tends to happen, on social media. After the first couple of times you've seen it, it's no longer funny. Then you see someone make a slight variation to that meme, and now it's funny again because you weren't expecting it. And this can even become kind of self-recursive and meta, right? When you
Yeah.
have memes start to be used ironically.
Yeah.
Because now it's like, oh, it's so played out. No one expects you to use that stupid played out meme anymore, but you
Yeah.
did, and that's what makes it funny.
That's the nature of my humor, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think adding to that point, Keelan, I think you could watch something a million times and get sick of it, and then you could watch it for a million and first time with somebody who has never seen it, and they're never having seen it before. They'll be laughing, and then that'll become contagious, and then you'll
Yeah.
remember why it was funny in the first place. But I think that adds to the incongruity because now there's a
I
new
agree.
person. Yeah.
There's a point that I want to. That has to do with like social laughing, just because someone's laughing, so you laugh too. So
Yeah.
like, have you ever watched a video of the Dalai Lama giving a speech, and he'll start laughing for no reason, and then everybody else in the audience starts laughing.
Seriously?
Yeah, it's just his laugh is like really contagious, just because he's like so respected that if he views something as funny, then it's like, and not even because it's like, oh, I should laugh. It's because he seems like someone who's like very wise and knows a lot of things. That if
Don't
he's laughing,
expect it.
then it's like, oh, there's no reason to take any of this seriously. We'll just laugh too. You
Well, I
know?
mean, would you put this in the same category as like when you laugh at a joke you didn't get just because everyone else around you was laughing?
No, I would definitely not put that in the same
Okay.
category.
How are they different then?
I think that if there's someone that you, or someone that it goes even beyond someone that you admire. When it comes to someone like the Dalai Lama, then it's like Taoists. There's a Taoist parable of these two guys, and they're just like walking around laughing at leaves that are falling from the trees, just because in Taoism really nothing is taken seriously. You might as well laugh at everything because there's no meaning behind anything. So I think it has to do with kind of a wisdom of understanding nihilism almost.
Well, even that I think might be an instance of incongruity. The incongruity between appearance and reality. These things that
nice.
happen around us appear to have meaning, but they really don't in this Taoist perspective, and that's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think, you guys are really onto something. I think Papa Pronk is wandering around out there, so we might be running out of time here.
All right.
But nonetheless, let's, God, I want to stay on this topic because it's so juicy. But I also, I want to get at the phenomena of laughter too, and I know Johnny wanted to talk about that as well.
Yeah, go for it.
So all right, so yeah, let's just, well, John, repeat what you had said earlier.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the phenomenon of laughter has to do with kind of a chemical response to as a reward system for learning something, for putting two and two together.
Okay.
If there was something that you didn't get, you get it. You get the joke. You understand it, and because you understand something you previously didn't understand, your brain rewards you for that.
Yeah, and so you speak of their spontaneous laughter, which is to say you don't decide to laugh, you can't help but laugh.
Yeah.
And again, you want to turn to dark humor and stuff like that. That adds to the incongruity aspect of, oh my God, I just found something funny at a funeral. Oh my God, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Now I'm gonna start laughing. Oh my God, now I'm laughing in a funeral. Oh my God, this is so
terrible
awkward.
What a
person.
situation.
Yeah, exactly. But then, as you said, there are those other. I gotta stop smacking my the tongue against the roof of my mouth into the microphone. I do that constantly. I listen back to these radio shows, and it's just like, ew. I sound like I'm Pooh Bear eating honey or something. Like
Jack, can I get a pop filter on Manzi's mic?
pop filter, exactly. But so you have this you have these other forms of laughter. Maybe you force yourself to laugh. And but I asked you guys this, and Kaylin, I don't know if I asked you. Did you manage to make it to the Science of Happiness talk that happened on Wednesday?
Unfortunately, I did not. I was not able to.
She went in. I say she. I mean Dr. Catherine Sanderson. She spoke about how she's a behaviorist, B.F. Skinner School of positive psychology. She argued that if you force yourself to smile, you'll become happy. And I wonder if you force yourself to laugh,
Will something be funny?
will you find something?
Can you train something
yeah, let's ask
horrible
my
to be funny?
Yeah, I think. Well, it's this idea of can you cheer yourself up strictly from a physiological, where you don't have to get anything, you don't have to think about it. She was like, just make your mouth like this for like 2 minutes, and eventually you'll start to see things in a more optimistic way, according to some study. And
So the Joker was really doing people favors.
right? He's a therapist. He's a genius. And so I say that for the following reason. There are certain forms of laugh therapy that people explore where that's exactly what they do. You get in a room together with strangers and you force yourself to laugh. And all of these people say, well, not all these people say, but people that I've spoken with who have gone through such therapy say it works. That if you force yourself to laugh, eventually you'll start finding something funny, even if you don't know what it is. And so that always kind of really captured my imagination. How can you find something funny if there's nothing to find funny? It seems like you can have this sort of laughter and get these rewards neurologically or physiologically and experience that sort of relief. But how do you segregate laughter or separate laughter from a joke or from a phenomena?
From humor?
Yeah, from humor. Like
Separating it, laughing from humor.
laughing from humor. Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Well,
Like,
I'm still thinking of humor as the emergent qualitative property of all the variables that come together to make a joke good. You know?
but again, we define good usually by laughter.
Yeah. So it's kind of cyclical like that, I guess. I guess we can define it in a different way.
Cyclical. It's definitely
Maybe-
sick and ill.
Maybe when you're like nervous and you're just laughing.
Yeah.
Like, but you're not thinking it's funny or humorous, but you just laugh because you're nervous. Some people do that.
Yeah, it certainly seems that that humor or a joke is not the only possible source or cause of laughter. Just maybe the most typical one.
But why is that?
What about
Like,
tickling?
Oh, tickling.
Oh, yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you brought that up. In fact,
Actually, I think that could fall into the incongruity theory. Actually, I think.
how so?
I know. I'm serious. I'm serious. It seems to me that tickling is like because
We're very serious about comedy today.
Well, no, this is gonna sound kind of weird, but people tend to be most ticklish in areas of their body where they're actually physically vulnerable, like where there are like arteries, or like your neck, places that are physically vulnerable. And so when you start getting, touched or have that area, stimulated in some way, normally your body would react in kind of a fight or flight way to protect itself in that area. But because it's not an actual aggressive attack, then your reaction is to laugh at the incongruity.
Huh. That makes a lot. I never thought of that. That makes a lot of sense.
So a lot of pressure points or places where you get struck and it's really painful or dangerous to you are the same places you're ticklish.
But you don't have to know all that to still laugh.
You don't have to know about that because I think there seems to be a built-in. Again, the places where you're really sensitive. Like, you ever gotten pinched on the inside of your thigh really hard?
No.
Dead
Anybody?
silence. Okay.
I'm not sure I have the
just like
same
if you-
hobbies as you.
Right.
Is that an invitation?
Yeah, come over here. No,
His main squeeze.
I've scraped against something sharp or gotten pinched the inside of
Yeah,
my
no,
thigh
and I
before,
have, I have.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it makes you just jump back immediately. Your femoral artery is right there.
Oh.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's how I scare my
Even
dog.
if you don't know that your femoral artery is there, your body is just kind of
It's gonna
built
respond
to
to it.
be especially sensitive to anything that comes into contact with parts of you that are especially vulnerable to damage, is what
Wow.
it seems like.
That's interesting because it has to do with your body knowing that it's not a threat, even without you thinking about it, without you thinking if it is a threat or not.
Yeah.
So in the moment that you are being tickled, your brain decides whether or not it is a threat or it is not a threat.
Well, I mean, when you get down to it, though, isn't the difference between a tickle and a strike the intention behind it?
Yeah, I guess so.
I don't know. I mean, you can. I don't know. I don't know about that. If you punch me in the ribs, I'm gonna. It's gonna feel different than if you're tickling me. but I see your
I can
point.
prove this later, Jeff.
Oh gosh, I'll take your word for it. Yeah, it's just this is really fascinating because it's almost like the body knows before the mind that it's okay to laugh, or not even that it's okay, that the body will laugh and then the mind tries to keep up with the response it's already eliciting.
This may seem like a bit of a kind of digression, but I would actually bring this back to kind of an Aristotelian theory of composite body and soul.
Oh, sounds like a live Gretchen.
Much more than a dead Gretchen or a digression. Yes, a live Gretchen.
A live Gretchen.
Yeah, there you go. Well, no, because it's not your mind that knows or your body that knows. It's you.
It's you, yeah.
That knows. And so I wouldn't make a sharp distinction between your body knows something that you don't know. You are the
body.
No, you are not the body. You are not the soul of the mind. You are the union of those
The combination
things.
of all.
This is my body.
But
Take from it.
there are definitely some things that the subconscious knows that we do not know, that we get hints about. Things that, like, there have been. I read the book Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. Have you heard about that one?
Great band.
I haven't read it.
It's about the. So the intro is basically there was some kind of. This is gonna take like 3 minutes. I can do it pretty fast. Okay, so the intro was there's this.
That's
new,
what she said. See, joke, popular joke.
That was a digression.
The undead Gretchen. I just won't let it die. Or keep reanimating it. Okay, what were you saying, Blink?
Yes, Blink. So the concept is there was this new art gallery, and they were collecting these types of Greek statues, which was a certain type of statue called a kurus or something like that. So they found this kurus.
It's pronounced couscous.
Okay, they found this couscous.
He's gonna get mad.
That anyway, this person sold to them for very cheap, and they thought it was an original, like it was actually from ancient Greece. And then all the scientists came in and tested it, and chemically it was fine. Everything matched. The soil samples on it matched with ancient Greece at that time with all the different chemicals in it. And there were these people who came in who studied these certain types of statues for their whole lives, and in the first 4 seconds of seeing it, they would say sharp things like the curator would be like, yeah, we just got this statue, and they were like, I'm sorry, and they didn't really know why they said that, or like, oh, it looks kind of weird, but they didn't know why it looked weird, and it's because their subconscious have been trained for so many years to be able to spot the weird parts of statues, the parts that weren't there and the parts that were there. Eventually, they took a really deep core sample because they had all those people who said it looked weird, and then they found out that it was actually a fake. And it was because the subconscious of the people who had known that kind of thing had been trained over the years to be able to spot that and just send a signal to the conscious brain, just be like, that's weird, something's wrong, you know? So the more we train our brain like that, and there's a lot of other examples like that, but there are some things that like mathematical things that our subconscious figures out before our conscious mind figures it out. So
Yeah.
what I'm saying is that we can't say that we are the ones, the thing that I call I is the one that makes all the decisions for me.
Yeah. Yeah, and that'll venture into, different kinds of territory, I think, personal identity and identity formation and, what a person is. Awesome stuff. And I'm so tempted to go down that road. But maybe we can sort of do both at the same time, that and stick on the topic. What do you make then of the phenomena that you'll laugh and you don't know why you're laughing, and then later you realize why you're laughing? Because this kind of seems like what you're getting at, if you want to sort of recontextualize it here.
Okay.
Has that ever happened to anybody? Have you laughed at something and then you're like, it's not that I don't get the joke, I don't know why I'm laughing. And sometimes, at least for me, it happens when I'm alone.
Huh.
Thinking
do you have
about
any
my life.
examples? Because I'm sure I could think of one if you have an example.
Yeah, so, just something like, I don't know, you're sitting there, you're reading something, and next thing you know, you start laughing, and it's almost like it's happening to you. And then you're like, why am I laughing? Why am I? And somebody might be like, why are you laughing right now? And you're just like, I don't know. And then people might think, okay, he's cracking up. Let's call the mental ward. But but it's like later you can ask yourself, well, what was it that was like, you do almost like you conduct an investigation. Like, what did I find funny about this? Okay, usually it'll happen when I'm with a person, and I'll find the person funny, but they're not intending to be funny.
Yeah.
And, it's not an insulting thing. It's actually a compliment, But I'll be like, why why am I laughing to myself right now? I'll be thinking as I'm talking to the person. And then later I'll be like, what is it that I find so funny about this person? I don't know. And then I'll realize, oh, I know why. Reminds me of this. And, kind of like
another
that.
person.
Yeah, reminds me of another person. Or maybe bears a physical resemblance to somebody I find funny. Or just seems to get other things, and then I can imagine this person, in a situation where it's comedic, and I can, you know what I mean? So you start to author all of these different scenarios in an attempt to figure out what it is that tickled your funny bone with which to begin. And what ends up happening, at least for me most of the time, is that I come to find that, oh, this person is funny because either A, they're so unlike me, which is again the incongruity thing, or B, this person's exactly like me and I never realized it.
I think,
and that's incongruous because it goes against your initial understanding of that person.
I think when it comes to something being funny, a lot of us don't think of why something is funny. We just think of it as funny. So maybe like
why?
Well, I'm thinking of a certain example where like maybe I see like a bug and it's walking in just a really stupid manner, and I'm not really sure why I think it's stupid, but it's funny just the way that it's walking because it's like waddling or something. Like
the bug is waddling?
Yeah, I don't know. Like if you see a penguin waddling, it's funny. You laugh at penguins, right? Just because like they're cute and you laugh at them, Like we don't really know why. Is it because we personify them, and if we saw a person walking like that, it'd be just like out of the ordinary?
I think it might be something along these lines. A penguin kind of is upright like a person,
It's kind of personified, I guess.
Yeah.
I think I changed the subject a little bit. Sorry about that.
Anyways, we're talking about Batman Returns, Danny DeVito the Penguin, which probably scared me so badly as a kid. That's probably why I don't laugh at penguins. That's so... Just real quickly here, if you ever never saw Batman Returns, it's so silly. They actually try to make the penguin like part penguin. It's the stupidest thing I've ever seen.
Is that the one where...
It's so dumb. He's part penguin. He lives in a sewer. Give me a break.
Who plays Batman in that one?
Michael Keaton.
Yeah, Michael Keaton. I almost said Val Kilmer, but he's the first. Yeah, Michael Keaton, yeah.
Well, Adam West was the first.
I guess.
That was good.
No, you're right. At any rate, so getting back to this idea of, again, separating laughter from what humor is and separating humor from conscious humor and unconscious humor, I suppose. What does it all amount to? So getting back to the original question, what is the function of it all? What is the function of a sense of humor? Can you understand humor through laughter alone? It doesn't seem like it. Can you understand laughter through humor alone? It's starting to sound like maybe not. Can you understand humor as simply a matter of conceptual understanding or misunderstanding? Potentially, but then again, you have slapstick humor, which again, it also sounds like, well, no. I mean, there's still some conceptual analysis happening there. You ever feel like your dog is laughing at you?
No. I don't think I'm on your level.
Get on my level. I throw it out there for the following reason. Do you ever feel embarrassed in front of an animal?
No.
So if you do something, if you're by yourself and you do something silly, and you're like, wow, that's so funny. I wish I had somebody to share that with. And again, maybe you plan on telling somebody about it, or maybe you text somebody, but you're laughing at it alone. Yeah. It's maybe just you and your cat, or you and your dog, or you and your young child, or you and your senile grandparent or something. Somebody who's not capable of getting it, in other words. You're still going to laugh at that because you understand. What'd you say?
No, the screen just changed and looks like the Matrix.
Oh, I see the
code. Are we out of time?
Yeah.
We've been going for... I don't know how long.
Are we
I
out?
kind of need to leave.
Yeah, we can wrap this up. I mean, guys, it's spring break. We're not the only people on campus right now. Jack probably wants to get out of here, so we can wrap up in a few. I got a couple plugs, then we'll get out of here. But yeah, I mean, just to finish my thought here, Batman Returns is terrible. Okay. No, to finish my thought here.
And
I
that's
guess-
why
I
we
guess-
laugh.
And that's why we.
We concluded the radio show.
Is that? I think here's what I wanted to say. To say what the function of a sense of humor is to miss the point of a sense of humor.
I think that's the honest thing, and I think actually I pulled up a quote that I wanted to use that the philosophy club didn't get a chance.
No,
to.
yeah. Let me hear it.
Actually, from Aquinas on humor. At that.
He was known to be funny.
Yeah, wasn't he though? The dumb ox. That's pretty funny, right?
Well, yeah. Let me hear the quote.
Yeah. So, and it kind of gets to the not necessarily pointlessness, but kind of okay. So he says, now such like words or deeds wherein nothing further is sought than the soul's delight are called playful or humorous.
No.
Hence, it is necessary at times to make use of them in order to give rest, as it were, to the soul. But I want to focus on that. Some actions, words, or deeds where nothing further is sought than the soul, or I guess you could say the mind's delight.
I like that.
Those are playful or humorous. So yeah, to have anything, there may be other points that effects that humor can have. But what humor is doesn't really point beyond itself necessarily as humor.
I think that's right.
It can serve other functions like getting a point across or to relieve tension or as a coping
Try to
mechanism.
ingratiate yourself to somebody.
Right.
Yeah.
But those are maybe things that follow from the act of humor rather
Yeah.
than being constitutive of the act of humor itself.
No, I think that's very wise. I think you could say the same thing about art or being creative as well, in a strictly artistic sense. But here's the thing. As much as I like that quote, I just don't think it's...
It's not funny, I know.
And no, I know it's not funny. I don't... I think it's too idealistic.
Okay, how so?
I think
because
it's...
it involves the soul.
Okay, well, yeah, certainly we can talk about that. But I just think in terms of the abstract, it's rare that it's rare that we don't use humor. I guess what I'm trying to say is that humor always seems like it's going beyond itself. And I think that's part of its nature. I think that's what Uche meant when he wanted to know about the function of it. And I think, but I do think we can make that distinction between functions that it serves and what it is. But I also think that that's sort of artificial abstraction. I think what it is to be used in these variety of different ways. And humor for itself, I'm just not so sure if that's really a thing. You know what I mean?
So you deny that there are things that people do purely for the sake of it being fun or funny?
Well, fun and funny, I think, could be two different things.
Okay, sure. We'll
Yeah,
say
yeah.
again. We'll say playful or humorous,
You
or we
gotta
can
go?
limit it to just humorous.
I'm gonna head out.
Oh, no, okay. Oh, no. I think that just happened.
It froze.
One half of it did.
Yeah.
That's a funny look, though.
Why is it funny?
Because it's not what you expect to say. I do think there are, in general, things done for their own sake. But I think humor is always inherently a social thing, and insofar as it's a social thing, it has a certain utility. And I think it's varied. It's varied. I think it's varied. I think it's diverse. But even, and this is what I wanted to circle back to, even when you're laughing by yourself, even though Haya says that she never laughs by herself, which is insane to me. Even when you're laughing by yourself, you're actually laughing as part of the community because you're laughing at the norms that everybody shares, and you're laughing with the kind of thing that you tap into something that's more, we'll say, relatively absolute.
I think that humor is always social, and even when it's not, it's the illusion of it being social. So just like what I said with TV, or like a comedy special or a story, when you have the illusion that you're there, it's the illusion of some kind of social behavior. So it all circles back to the illusion of being social.
I see. Or, I mean, you could even go so far as to say it's, in the other extreme, it's the glue of all that is social.
So then the capacity for humor then would not actually be rooted in rationality. It would be socially conditioned.
Well, I think so, but I think, that also requires rationality. You have to be able to understand the norms of your society in order to make fun of them, in order to critique them or comment on them.
So rooted indirectly rather than directly.
Did you make a distinction between ration and social behavior?
Between simply the fact of rationality versus the fact of being in society. I think those are two, at least analytically distinct things.
Okay.
You very rarely will find them separate. That doesn't mean they're not distinct.
I know we have to wrap this up, but there's an idea that I have about even rationality being something that is inherently social because of its coming out of evolution, and our evolutionary need to be social, because that is the one fundament of us as social beings. So even though ration seems like something external that we've developed, could it be that it's just another progression of evolution?
I don't see those two as being mutually exclusive. I think that the origin of a power capacity and the nature of it, or what it is, are separate things. That you can know what something is, or that what something is what it is, not necessarily having to do with its its origin or even maybe its function or purpose.
Right, because it's just about knowing what it is. It's just the curiosity of being conscious in a world of subjects.
It's like, well, yeah, like how you learn, how you
Or
came to
objects.
know that 2 + 2 = 4 is different than the nature of that equation, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on who you ask.
Is
Let me just throw this in there too. I think that it actually is an inversion in humor here. So I can't hear myself. Insofar as when you begin to really analyze and dissect the joke, it loses its humor. Like there's a certain part of the joke that you should get, but you don't want to look too closely either, because then you kind of see it for what it is.
It's not funny if I have to explain it, right?
Exactly, stuff like that. Unless I'm doing it ironically, or even if I'm not, somebody else might make it funny. And I think that's the best way to put it. You can make things funny that aren't normally funny, and you can make humor. You could create, you can shape the comedic sensibilities, the comedic climate of a society, of a family, of a group of friends, of a nation, of an entertainment industry, because it is malleable like that. Because it is, again, I think relatively context dependent, under the umbrella of a universal need for people to see the humor in things, and I do think it's a need. I think if people don't have I think if a person has a poor sense of humor, that person is suffering, and the person wishes that they had a better sense of humor. And fortunately, it's the kind of thing that you can improve on. You can learn to take a joke. You can learn to make a joke. You can learn to appreciate laughter. You can love to laugh almost innately, and then so you're going to want to encourage it more routinely. Comedic routine. Okay, Jack's trying to get out of here, guys. This was an awesome conversation. Let me just say a couple things by way of plugs and disclaimers, and also this. I wanted to bring this up, Plato. So at the end of the symposium, which is my favorite, one of my favorite dialogues of Plato, the symposium is this lengthy sort of, we'll just say a drinking party of sorts where they talk about the nature of love. But at the very end, they've been up for like 2 days straight, the people at the party, and everybody's fallen asleep, everybody's been drinking, everybody's kind of teetering out. And there are 3 guests that are still awake by sunrise. It's Alcibiades, who is the representative of comedy. He was a comic at the time. There's Agathon, whose house it is, and he just won an award for best tragedy. That's why they're celebrating. And then there's Socrates, who's representative of philosophy. So you have comedy, tragedy, and philosophy. And without going into too much detail, the conversation that they're having as they're all falling asleep is if it were possible to merge the genres of comedy and tragedy. Because at the time of the ancient Greeks, tragedy was its own thing, comedy was its own thing, and never the two shall meet. So if you were a comic, you wrote comedies, you never wrote tragedies, and vice versa. And the implication is that philosophy is the thing that combines comedy and tragedy. And philosophy, of course, being the height of reason. So it seems like the more capable you are of understanding the connection between what's tragic and what's funny, the better you'll be at living life, and at the very least understanding one another through the lens of one another.
But it feels like the subject of comedy could be tragedy.
Yeah, definitely.
So that could tie them together.
And sometimes the subject matter of tragedies could be comedic or funny.
Who was it that coined the phrase that comedy is just tragedy plus time?
Yeah. Who did coin that phrase?
I can't remember.
We'll just
I was asking you.
We'll say Manzi.
Yeah, okay.
All right, couple plugs real quick here. So first of all, I wish everybody a happy spring break, all my little philosophers out there. My little philosopher thunder ducks flying south for the spring, or I guess north.
Kind of neutral for spring.
I guess they're just kind of hanging out for spring. Thanks, John.
You're welcome.
We can cut Mike 6 now. I think coming up rather hastily, we have a number of things in the works here. So the 27th of March, I believe, is going to be the next installment in the Philosophy and Film series, Film to be Determined. On April 17th, we're going to have the Ethics Bowl, or Ethics Olympics. I'll say more about that. On April 25th, What do we just? Where's Haya when we need her?
24.
April 24th. Something's happening on the 24th and the 25th. Oh, I know what it is. The 25th is oh God, I'm gonna mix these up. The 25th is going to be the student conference, the philosophy student conference, and the 24th is going to be a panel of some sort. Wow, this is going so horribly. I wish I didn't leave early.
Wait, Gabby, didn't you write that down somewhere?
Yeah.
Okay,
So
thank
the
you. Okay, cool.
24th
Got
was
it on
the
your phone.
religion politics panel.
See, that was funny. She was just letting me just
Let me watch how this
Yeah.
goes.
Yeah,
But I
swaying the
didn't-
breeze. Yeah.
And the film series, the 10th, and March 27th. But yeah.
And then
That's
there's
it.
and then May 1st there's going to be the philosophy and art collaboration.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, okay, so that's what it is. The 24th and the 25th will be back-to-back big events, and then we're going to have our fundraiser on the
18th.
18th. That's what it is. It's a lot to remember, guys. I've only gotten worse as these seasons have progressed for giving out plugs.
And that's not funny, 'cause that's exactly what we expected.
Hey. Well, Kalen will never be back, but it was nice having him. No, it's the other thing too of the philosophy program growing. So there's more stuff to remember. There are more events happening on campus, which is a fantastic thing. Also, shout out as well to the Intercultural Women's Society for celebrating Women's Day yesterday. And teaming up with the Honor Student Organization, some really cool things that they did yesterday, specifically the photo booth and stuff like that. It was a nice event. It was a nice way to celebrate. So congrats. But okay, John said enough. You are listening to KDUX Web Radio, broadcast live from Richland College in Dallas, Texas. We are the voice of Richland College. Views expressed on the show are my own unless otherwise stated and do not reflect the opinion of KDUX Web Radio, Richland College, or the DCCCD. Have a nice spring break, quackers. And you guys ready?
Ready.
No, what do I say? What's my tagline? I hate you all. Think about it. I love you all. Happy spring break.